Picture a moment that changed fiction forever. And no, it's not that gold hair transformation. The first time we saw the Kaioken's red aura surround Goku, that's the moment that changed fiction forever. While most fans point to the Super Saiyan transformation as Dragon Ball's defining power-up, it's actually in the subtle brilliance of the Kaioken that we find Akira Toriyama's true genius. And don't get me wrong, I love the Super Saiyan, you love the Super Saiyan, everyone loves the Super Saiyajin transformation, but in a world of increasingly dramatic transformations and power escalations, is the Kaioken, is that technique the one that stands apart not for its raw power, but for its profound understanding of martial arts philosophy and human potential. Welcome to BitViews. Let's hit it. Before we had legendary transformations or divine powers, before we witnessed hair turning gold or warriors ascending to godhood, Toriyama gave us something more profound, a technique that embodied the very essence of martial arts philosophy. In the early 1980s, when Dragon Ball was still primarily a martial arts story, power-ups in manga typically followed simple patterns, hidden techniques, secret weapons, or innate talents suddenly unleashed. But Toriyama had a different vision. He wanted to show that true power comes with a price, that every increase in strength must be earned through discipline and paid for with risk. The Kaioken wasn't just another technique, it was a statement about the nature of power itself. In a genre where characters often gain strength through inheritance or destiny, or, well, because they were born in a warrior race from a specific planet that actually happens to have a transformation that is apparently very easy to attain because it's a tingly feeling in the lower back. Toriyama gave us a power-up that anyone could theoretically master, and even though only Goku does it, and Vegeta does it in Dragon Ball After, and Krillin does it in some video games, in the end in the series it's only Goku, but anyone could do it theoretically. If, and only if, they were willing to pay the price in dedication, discipline, and risk. To truly understand the revolutionary nature of the Kaioken, we need to examine exactly how it works. Unlike other power-ups that simply make the user stronger, the Kaioken multiplies everything: power, speed, strength, and key output, all simultaneously. But this multiplication requires perfect control over every aspect of the body. Every single cell must be regulated. And no, I'm not talking about that cell. Every muscle fiber must be controlled. Every ounce of ki must be precisely managed. Think about what this means in practice. When Goku uses a ×3 Kaioken, he's not just tripling his power. He's tripling the output of every system in his body simultaneously. His heart must work 3 times as hard without failing, his muscles must endure 3 times the strain without tearing, and his mind must process information 3 times as fast without losing focus. One small slip in this perfect balance, and the technique becomes lethal to its user. And let's remember, this is a technique for fighting, so you need to achieve that perfect balance while in a fight, normally with opponents way stronger than you. This is why Kai Osama, or King Kai, with his training was so crucial, and why it reveals so much about the nature of true martial arts mastery. Before Goku could even attempt the Kaioken, he had to achieve what many will consider impossible. First, catching Bubbles the monkey in 10 times Earth's gravity, teaching him to maintain perfect control of his movements under extreme conditions. Then striking Gregory the grasshopper with a hammer, developing the precision to regulate his power even at high speeds. You see, these seemingly simple tasks actually hold deeper meaning. The increased gravity wasn't just about building strength, it was about maintaining perfect body control under constant strain. The chase wasn't just about speed, It was about sustained focus and adaptation. The hammer strike wasn't just about accuracy. It was about precise power management. And let's remember, that hammer was also very, very heavy. Each element of this training built the foundation necessary for the perfect bodily control that the Kaioken will demand. And for us to get into the mindset, we need to go back to the actual real-world foundations of this. You see, in traditional martial arts, there exists a concept that perfectly encapsulates the essence of the Kaioken: Shuhari. This Japanese term describes the 3 stages of mastery. First, learning, then breaking from tradition, and finally, transcending it entirely. The Kaioken follows this philosophical progression with remarkable precision. Consider how Goku's mastery of the technique evolves. First, he learns the fundamental principles under Kaio-sama's guidance, the Shu stage. Then, he begins to break from the basic form, experimenting with different multipliers, and pushing the technique's limits, the Ha stage. And finally, he transcends the original limitations, eventually combining the Kaioken with other techniques. And even the Super Saiyan state, the Ri stage. And yes, we all know that the Super Kaioken, or combining the Super Saiyajin transformation with the Kaioken, it's anime only, and it's not canon. It's very cool, we all love it, and we could maybe say that it's only possible because he was in the afterlife, similar to Super Saiyajin 3, but at the end of the day, it's not canon. What is canon, though, is mixing the Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan transformation, or Super Saiyan Blue, with the Kaioken, which was an amazing moment that I have no shame in admitting that got me squealing like a schoolgirl when I saw it back in the day when Dragon Ball Super was still a thing. And for a second, let's also think that this Shuhari is a philosophy that Toriyama also applies to the Super Saiyajin transformation. So Super Saiyajin becomes the replacement of the Kaioken, and during the Cell Saga, this gets applied to the Super Saiyajin transformation, going through all the stages of actually it becoming a secondary state. But this wasn't the only Eastern philosophical principle that Toriyama wove into the Kaioken. The Chinese concept of Wu Wei, effortless action through perfect discipline, manifests in how the technique must be executed with absolute calm despite its intense strain. The Buddhist principle of mindfulness appears in the perfect moment-to-moment awareness required to maintain the power multiplication. You see, even the Japanese idea of kime, the perfect focus of power in martial arts, shows itself in how the Kaioken must be precisely controlled. And it is when we take a look to all these philosophical principles that it comes alive in actual combat situations. Look at Goku's first major battle using the Kaioken against Vegeta. Each increase in power wasn't just a numerical advantage, it was a lesson in the technique's true nature. The initial ×2 multiplier showed us the baseline capabilities. But it was what came next that truly demonstrated the technique's depth. When ×2 proved insufficient, Goku had to make critical decisions. Increasing to ×3 meant pushing beyond what he had practiced with Kaio-sama, risking his body in a calculated gamble. The power increase was dramatic, but so was the strain. We could see it in his movements, hear it in his voice, feel it in every frame of animation. This wasn't just power, it was power earned through conscious sacrifice. But the true test came with the ×4 Kaioken. In that moment, facing Vegeta's Gallic Ho, or Gallic Gun, with a Kamehameha, Goku had to make a choice that perfectly embodied the philosophy behind the technique. He knew ×4 could destroy his body. He knew the risk was extreme, but he also knew exactly how much power he needed, and exactly how long he could maintain it. This wasn't reckless power usage, it was precision through perfect self-knowledge. And you see, the evolution of the Kaioken throughout Dragon Ball shows us something remarkable about both the technique and Toriyama's storytelling sophistication. Each new application revealed deeper layers of its potential. Against Frieza, we saw Goku pushing the technique to its absolute limit, times 20. This wasn't just a number increase, it showed how mastery could expand possibilities. Think about what times 20 actually means. Every cell in Goku's body operating at 20 times its normal capacity. Every muscle fiber enduring 20 times the normal strain. The mental focus required to maintain such multiplication. All this while engaged in combat with the most powerful being he'd ever faced. This wasn't just power scaling, it was the ultimate test of everything the Kaioken represented. And then later, even though, as we said, is anime only, the most fascinating evolution comes both in the filler and then in Dragon Ball Super, when Goku combines the Kaioken with the Super Saiyajin state. It's a fusion of discipline technique and transform power, showing that these two approaches to strength weren't mutually exclusive. It demonstrated how technical mastery could enhance even seemingly ultimate powers. But yes, I know, the Super Kaioken is not canon because, well, technically if you combine both, your body will explode because your soul is not calm enough for you to use the Kaioken. And with the God Key you could, but some people don't like Dragon Ball Super, so for this point to go home, we need to talk about the contrast between Super Saiyajin and Kaioken. And before you say anything, I will reiterate, I love the Super Saiyajin transformation, and we all know is the most emblematic thing in shonen, and it changed the shonen industry forever, and I likely will make a video about it. And we also know that it was born mostly because Toriyama didn't want to keep painting Goku's hair because it was a pain to paint that in black in the manga back in the day. But still, the Super Saiyan transformation, or Super Saiyajin, is the perfect counterpoint to the Kaioken, and ultimately it replaces it. Where the Kaioken represents power through discipline, Super Saiyajin shows us power through emotional breakthrough. The contrast couldn't be more stark, yet both reveal essential truths about the nature of strength. Consider the circumstances of Goku's first Super Saiyajin transformation. Watching Frieza murdering Krillin, feeling absolute rage and helplessness. Goku broke through a limitation, not through a technique or training, but through pure emotional force. The golden aura, the spiked hair, the transformed appearance. Everything about it spoke to power beyond control, strength through emotional release. But here's what makes Toriyama's writing so sophisticated. Neither approach is shown as superior. Even though, yes, I know that in the Kaisenshu, the numbers of multiplication, Super Saiyajin is 50 times multiplier. The Super Saiyan's raw power exceeded anything the Kaioken could produce, yet it came with its own costs. The initial transformation brought aggression, reduced control, a fundamental change in personality. Let's remember that the first time that Goku transformed into Super Saiyajin, he was a completely different person. It showed us that emotional power, while immense, demands its own kind of mastery, which then will be the character growth arc for the Cell Saga and the Super Saiyajin transformation. This duality, discipline technique versus emotional power, created a template that storytellers continue to follow decades later. Let's look at how modern series have built upon this foundation. Starting with One Piece, and One Piece has the gear system for Luffy. Luffy's Gear Second, or in his words, Gear Secondo, serves as perhaps the clearest spiritual successor to the Kaioken, and I love it. Like the Kaioken, Gear Second accelerates the user's bodily functions to multiply their capabilities. The visual parallels are striking. Like the red skin, the steam rising from the body, even the strain it initially placed on Luffy's lifespan. But it's not just the surface similarities that matter. And it's not just the fact that Luffy also had to master his body and understand that because his body was made of rubber, he could actually strain his blood vessels so that blood will go faster, causing his body to just be faster overall and more powerful. The underlying philosophy, power through conscious bodily manipulation, strength through technical understanding, directly echoes the Kaioken's principles. But One Piece is not the only one of the big heirs of Dragon Ball that takes inspiration from the Kaioken. Naruto does it too. Naruto has the 8 Gates system, and it stands as another fascinating evolution of the Kaioken's principles. Like Toriyama's technique, each gate represents a specific multiplier of power, and each comes with increasingly severe physical consequences. But what makes this adaptation particularly interesting is how it builds upon the foundation of the Kaioken. The 8 gates add layers of complexity to the concept. Each gate has its own unique characteristics, from the initial gate's removal of mental limitations to the death gate's ultimate sacrifice. The visual representation evolves as well, the user's skin turning red, steam emanating from their body, the very air around them burning. These elements both honor and expand upon the visual language that Toriyama established with the Kaioken. And, spoilers for Naruto, skip to this time if you don't want to, be spoiled about Naruto. Consider Might Guy's ultimate battle against Madara, opening all 8 gates, turning his blood to vapor, sacrificing his life for one moment of ultimate power. This scene carries the same philosophical weight as Goku's most desperate Kaioken moments. And you may be thinking, hey, okay, but those are the direct heirs of Dragon Ball. That, is not present that much anymore. But I am very happy to say that modern series do this too. As we move into more recent series, we see even more sophisticated interpretations of these concepts. My Hero Academia has One for All, and it demonstrates perhaps the most technical evolution of the Kaioken's principle. Deku struggle to control percentages of his power that directly mirrors the calculated risk of the Kaioken multipliers. When Deku first attempts to use 100% of One for All, his bones shatter. This isn't just a callback to the body-breaking potential of the Kaioken, it's an exploration of the same fundamental question. How do we access power beyond our body's natural limits? His gradual mastery through percentage increases shows us a modern take on the same philosophical journey. And then he goes into full cowling. In particular, that one represents a fascinating modern interpretation of the Kaioken. The idea of maintaining a consistent level of power throughout the entire body rather than concentrating it in one point, shows yet another version of how modern creators add to this base of the Kaioken and just keep increasing. You could even say that Jujutsu Kaisen, for example, does the same thing through a sophisticated evolution of this power system. Domain expansion is a perfect fusion of discipline and emotional approaches, reflecting the separation from Toriyama with the Kaioken and the Super Saiyan. To execute a domain expansion, a sorcerer needs both perfect technical control and absolute conviction. The technique requires precise manipulation of coarse energy, like the Kaioken's ki control, but also demands emotional investment and certainty. You could even stretch it even more and say that Black Flash serves as another example. The technique requires flawless timing, the perfect application of coarse energy in the 0.000001 second domain of unconscious thought. This is just another showing of how power systems have evolved since, Toriyama introduced some of them in Dragon Ball. And if you push me, yes, I could stretch this and say that everything is based on the Kaioken. Trust me, don't test me. But is that philosophy, is that philosophy of trade-off. It's something that is also on video games. It's something that makes video games more engaging, that makes power not feeling meaningless. In Dark Souls, for example, stamina management is the name of the game. And that's the same risk-reward mechanic that echoes the Kaioken's principles. The idea of power with a price has become fundamental to how games approach character progression and combat mechanics. And yes, I am not saying the Kaioken invented this. I'm not saying that the Kaioken is the reason for everything ever, although I could if you give me like 5 hours of your time. But it's such an engaging concept. And the show-off of the sacrifice that Goku does every time he has to go over this technique is really something engaging. You could even say that Western animation also does the same, like Avatar: The Last Airbender with the chakra gates and the avatar state. It's the same logic, right? Discipline and emotional aspects of power combined. Steven Universes with the gem fusion mechanic is the same. Technical skill and emotional connection. You could say these are related somehow, or these are homages or something, or you could just say, come on, you're stretching it. But what makes these techniques and their influence endure isn't just their effectiveness as storytelling devices. They endure because they reflect fundamental truths about human growth and potential. The Kaioken shows us the path of discipline, self-improvement, the daily training, the careful pushing of limits, the conscious choice to go beyond what's comfortable. It's a metaphor for every person who's ever tried to exceed their limitation through dedicated effort. Think about your own experiences with self-improvement. When you were pushing yourself in training, when you are trying to master a new skill, when you are studying for a test or an exam, when you are working to exceed your previous limits, you are walking the path of the Kaioken. Every time you choose to push a little further, to maintain control under pressure, to risk failure for the sake of growth, you are embodying its principles. This is why the technique resonates so deeply with me, and with other people that grow with Dragon Ball and other creators that do their own version or homages to it. It's not just about multiplying power. Everyone would love to just, get very mad and become Super Saiyajin and, I'm so powerful. I mean, I love the Super Saiyajin transformation. But we can't. We are humans. We are not Saiyans or Saiyajin. We can't achieve that. It's not within our grasp. And yes, sometimes, in times of despair, humans can access power through emotional bursts, like a mother lifting an entire car just to get her children from under it. There are videos of that. There are instances of that. It's a thing. Humans can do that under extreme circumstances. But this is not just about that. It's not just about power. It's about the universal human experience of trying to become something more than we are, through careful effort, through conscious choice, through disciplined application of will. These are the ways we all try to exceed our limits. This is true self-improvement. It's going beyond. You see, if you look at the last video in this channel and when this video gets released, a lot of time passed. And a good reason for it is Toriyama's passing in early 2024. Looking at his legacy today and, how his works affected a lot of people. A lot of people grew with Dragon Ball and Dr. Slump and Dragon Quest and Blue Dragon, etc., etc., etc. And yes, likely you, like me, grew with the anime, and the anime is not exclusively Akira Toriyama's work, and there is a lot of people working there, and the music, the animation, the voice. And if you saw a dub, then you have to multiply the dub effort, because that's a dub on top of a dub. All of those people are very influential for me and for a lot of people, because we grew on this. We grew with Dragon Ball. And I wanted to show, in some way, my appreciation towards Toriyama-sensei. And I saw all these videos and articles and everything drawings, and so on that people did, and the way he touched all of our lives. And it's funny, because a person we never met, and yet he touched our lives in such a meaningful way and changed the medium forever. Shonen is the way it is because of Dragon Ball. But also, I am the way I am because of Dragon Ball. We all want to be like Goku, never give up, be strong, be kind, always up for a challenge. Or maybe you want to be like Vegeta, or you want to be like Piccolo. Everyone has their own role model here, but I think we can all agree that Goku is the flag. And you see, even in the lyrics for Dragon Ball Daima, when they explicitly write Akira Toriyama's name, or Toriyama Akira Menai, never give up, is what shows in the lyrics at that exact moment. So that's the message that Toriyama always showed to us. Never give up. Try your best. Be the best version of you that you can. And ideally, always with a smile. And to me, one of the most important techniques and lessons from Dragon Ball, it's the Kaioken. The Kaioken wasn't just a power-up technique. It was a new way of thinking about strength, discipline, and the price of power. It showed us that sometimes the most profound growth comes not from dramatic transformations, but from the wisdom to know our limits and the courage to carefully transcend them. Consider how this single technique changed the landscape of storytelling. Before the Kaioken, some power-ups maybe had rules or consequences, but after it became more of a mainstream thing. And the same thing happened later with the Super Saiyan transformation. It's about limitations and costs, about the relationship between risk and reward. Toriyama showed us that power-ups could be more than just spectacle. They could be vehicles for character development, philosophical exploration, and profound narrative meaning. And they could also teach you about the best way to go through life. Know yourself the best you can and push the hardest you can, but always within your limits. His influence extends beyond just how well we tell stories about power. The Kaioken showed us that technical writing and emotional resonance aren't mutually exclusive, that you can have precise power scaling and deep character moments, that the most memorable moments in fiction often come not just from pure power, but from the conscious choice to risk everything for something greater than yourself. Through countless reinterpretations and evolutions, through generations of creators building on his foundation, Toriyama's core message remains clear. True strength comes in many forms, but it must always be earned, whether through disciplined practice or emotional growth, through careful study or desperate necessity. Power without sacrifice is hollow. Victory without risk is meaningless. This is perhaps his greatest gift to storytelling. In a genre often criticized for simplistic power escalation, Toriyama showed us that the journey to strength could be nuanced, philosophical, and profoundly human. The Kaioken wasn't just about becoming stronger. It was about becoming better. About understanding yourself, your limits, and the price you're willing to pay to exceed them. What began as a technique in a manga about martial arts has become an enduring metaphor for the human capacity to grow, to transform, and to exceed our limitations. Every time a character in fiction makes a conscious choice to risk everything for something greater, every time they push their limits through discipline and determination, they walk the path that Toriyama illuminated. And as we look to the future of storytelling, we see Toriyama's influence continuing to evolve, not only in his storytelling techniques, but his art, his concepts, his way of living. New creators find fresh ways to explore his ideas. New series build upon his foundation. And his visual language for power and transformations continues to spread across media and cultures. The red aura of the Kaioken has become more than just a special effect. It's become a symbol of the price we're willing to pay for growth, for progress, for protecting what matters. In this way, though he is no longer with us, Akira Toriyama's legacy lives on, not just in the works he created, but in how he forever changed the way we tell stories about human potential. Every time we see a character make the conscious choice to exceed their limits, every time we witness power earned through discipline and sacrifice, we see an echo of that revolutionary technique that showed us what storytelling about power could be. The next time you watch a character power up in any series, remember the Kaioken. Remember that moment when Toriyama showed us that true power isn't about what you are given, but about what you're willing to risk, what you're willing to sacrifice, and how far you are willing to go to protect what matters. In that lesson lies the true power of storytelling and the enduring legacy of a creator who changed fiction and our lives forever. Thank you, Akira Toriyama. May you rest in peace. We'll take it from here.